a Wise TV WYCC production. Programming that will change your mind.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem.
The time has come to control the uncontrollable.
The United States did not rise to greatness by waiting for others to lead.
We're a people whose energy and drive have fueled our rise to greatness.
Our first priority must always be the security of our nation, freedom.
Tonight, my fellow Americans, we are summoned to answer a question as old as the Republic itself. What is the state of our union?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of our Town Hall Discussion Series. Tonight, we present Overthrow, based on Stephen Kinzer's bestseller, Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq.
Stephen Kinzer is an award-winning foreign correspondent who has covered more than 50 countries on 5 continents. He has spent more than 20 years working for the New York Times. From 1983 to 1989, Kinzer was the Times bureau chief in Nicaragua. In that post, he covered war and upheaval in Central America. From 1990 to 1996, Kinzer was posted in Germany. He was chief of the New York Times bureau in Bonn, and after German unification became chief of the Berlin bureau. From there, he covered the emergence of post-communist Europe, including wars in the former Yugoslavia. In 1996, Kinzer was named chief of the newly opened New York Times bureau in Istanbul, Turkey. In 2006, Kinzer published Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq. He now teaches journalism and political science at Northwestern University, contributes articles to the New York Review of Books, and other periodicals.
Joining us now, award-winning journalist and author of Overthrow, America's Century of Regime Change from Hawaii to Iraq, Stephen Kinzer.
For that welcome. It's really great to be here. I see a lot of you carrying copies of my book. You've got great taste in literature. Let me just tell you very briefly about the genesis of this book, how it came about. Some of you may know that years ago I wrote a book called Bitter Fruit about how the United States intervened in Guatemala in the 1950s and overthrew the government there. Later on, I wrote another book about how the U.S. Overthrew the government of Iran. That book was All the Shah's Men. After writing those 2 books, I felt very satisfied and proud of myself. I felt that these were really the first books that had ever been written in detail on these American interventions, and I felt that I'd really ripped away the veil of lies and told the whole truth about what really happened, and the world would never be the same again. But as often happens when we become satisfied with ourselves and our work, soon afterward, I began to realize that actually I hadn't told the whole story. I hadn't accomplished what I thought I'd accomplished. Because in these books, although I told the story of these overthrows fully, I still was treating them as independent, discrete episodes that didn't have anything to do with each other. I began to realize that I had missed the real story. Only when you study these interventions and these American overthrows of foreign governments together, only when you see them as a continuum that stretches over a period of more than a century, do the patterns emerge that allow you to understand what ties all these episodes together. When you do that, you begin to understand history more clearly, but more important, you can understand today's news and the challenges that face our country in the future. So that was the genesis of this book, Overthrow. Instead of treating all these American overthrows of foreign governments as separate, unrelated episodes, I'm trying to treat them together so that we can see what they have in common and understand the forces that propel us into the regime change business. Now, writing a book is a very solitary process. I wrote this book essentially by locking myself in a little room for a year with nothing but 500 books and a laptop. About once a day, my wife would stick a little food under the door, but other than that, truly, I was essentially sitting in there alone. Nobody knew how much progress I was making or what I was doing. Naturally, during that process, the thought occurs, is there anybody out there? Who am I writing this for? Is there someone on the other end? It's such a solitary business that you really do begin to wonder. Being here today really gives me my answer. It's such a thrill. Some of you have already come up to me and told me that this book inspired you. Let me tell you, seeing all of you here today really inspires me. I think I got to run home and start working on my next book right now. So thanks all for coming out.
Author Stephen Kinzer.